Got the big brake kit from Wilwood. Got the nice 6-piston calipers, stainless steel lines. Instructions, need this. 2 different sets of brace pads and street pads. Rotor mounting hats. Hardware. Adapters. Some disclaimers. If you're not familiar with Wilwood, I highly suggest and recommend, just as I'm sure they do, to read this thoroughly. Thankfully, this is not my first time setting up a Wilwood brake kit. However, it is the first one for the brand new 2017 Civic Si, so I'm pretty excited, and hopefully, crossing my fingers, everything goes as planned. Last but not least, rotor. Slotted. I'm gonna get started on prepping the big brake kit before I go ahead and install it on the car. We're gonna start off by mounting the rotor hat onto the rotor. As you already know, each kit comes with hardware, so don't lose it. Alright, going off the instructions. Now that all 12 bolts are nice and snug, I'm going to torque down to specs, which they say 155 inch-pounds. And if you forget what the torque specs are, again, they are in the instructions. OEM rotor to the left, Wilwood slotted rotor to the right. I'm just going to start by taking off the brake line. Now that I got the brake line halfway off, disconnect the sensor, take it away. Now I'm going to grab my 17 and disconnect the entire caliper by the 2 bolts that mount to the knuckle. I don't bother taking off the pads. I feel that's just an extra step, but hey, who am I? I'm not ASC certified. And that's it. Caliper's off. Grab my specialty tool. Take off the screw from the rotor. That's it, I'm ready to install the brand new Wilwood rotor and caliper. Now, before I do, since the rotor is a lot bigger, the factory shield will hit or rub. So what I'm going to do is hammer it backwards a bit. Make sure obviously I'm not running into anything on the back end like a sensor, and it should clear, so let's find out. Alright, I'm going to install the ring. It is specific to a certain side of how it gets installed. As you can see, it has a lip right there. The other side is completely flat, sort of, the radius. So this lip needs to be outward. It's very important so that the rotor sits flush. Now putting the mounting bracket is a very crucial part because there's certain clearances that have to be made. This is where I strongly recommend reading the instructions. As you can see, it comes with different shims. Find the correct clearance. You need to make sure you are equally putting the same amount of shims on each bolt. I already pre-measured. Of course, I'm going to double check my work, but it should be. I'll be doing it 2 thick shims and then 1 thin one in the middle for each one. Got my new bolt and washer. Bolt and washer go in. The shims go in the back. And then the mount. Repeat for the bottom side. Now to measure it, to make sure it clears with the right amount of shims, place the rotor back on, grab the caliper, you can see this gap same exact gap. So I'm ready to fully mount the big brake kit. If it's off, just like I said, that's what the shims are for. You either add or subtract. But it looks pretty centered to me. Don't forget to add Loctite. Now bolt down the caliper. Now that it's all tightened down, I'm ready to swap out the old brake line with the new stainless steel one that was provided. And just keep in mind, it is directional. So you can see the arrows are indicated on the rotor. Sorry, it's kind of hard to tell on the caliper itself, which is right there. Now that I got the holding pin out, I can go ahead and disconnect it and take off the line and add the new stainless steel brake line. And then I could do the exact same thing on the other side, add brake fluid, bleed the system, and see how these things work. As you can see, the Wilwood Big Brake Kit clears with no spacers.